Never before has survival on a deserted island looked this enjoyable. With nothing but the simplest tools in his hands, this man managed to catch a plump reef fish and feast on a fresh, juicy seafood banquet. On top of that, he scored some tender, fragrant mud crabs and a chewy, meaty female abalone. Even a giant conch stuffed with meat, enough to make anyone's mouth water at first sight. For him, hunger pangs were never part of the story. Meet Lawson, a free spirit who refuses to be caged by city life, so he emptied his savings to buy a deserted island in Indonesia. Armed with only a few filming tools and survival gear, he set out on a bold journey to live completely alone. As everyone knows, the most important thing in island survival is fresh water. Luckily, the island was full of coconut trees. Lawson pressed his feet against the trunk, pushing outwards, while his arms pulled inward with all his strength. Using friction and counterforce, he climbed to the top. With a swing of his machete, coconuts dropped down with ease. These coconuts were not only plentiful, but also packed with nutrition. That meant no more worrying about finding drinking water. Next, Lawson got to work building a shelter. With swift chops of his blade, he cut branches of just the right size, planting them firmly in the ground as posts. Then he laid a crossbeam on top, tying everything together with strips of bark as rope. For the roof, he used the giant coconut leaves scattered everywhere. Though harvesting them proved much trickier than he expected. Pulling them down by hand was exhausting, while slicing them off with a knife was just as tiring. Still, after a few minutes of effort, he gathered more than enough leaves. Some went to cover the roof, and others he spread on the ground as a bed. After a short rest, it was time to find food. The island had a large mangrove swamp, so Lawson decided to look for some mud crabs. Barefoot, he waded in, carefully stepping among the maze of roots. It was dangerous, but hunger drove him forward. As he pressed on, a crab suddenly appeared, raising its claws in defense. It threatened him fiercely, snapping and waving as if ready for battle. But Lawson dismissed it as too small, needing a few more months to fatten up. By digging into larger burrows, he soon pulled out a massive, perfect mud crab. This one easily weighed over half a kilo. Encouraged, he repeated the trick, this time digging out a smaller one. Even under arrest, the feisty crab still brandished its claws like a little warrior. Little did the crab know, it was already destined for someone's dinner plate. With 2 hefty mud crabs weighing over half a kilo each, Lawson was more than satisfied. He left the mangrove swamp, rinsed off the mud and sand at the shore, and set them on the grass. They were ready to be cooked at any moment. He then gathered some dry firewood nearby and grabbed a few overripe coconuts along the way. Arranging the coconuts in a circle, he built himself a windbreak. Without wasting time, Lawson pulled out his fire starter. Sparks flew, smoke rose, and soon a blazing fire came to life. When the flames died down into glowing embers, he laid the 2 crabs on top to let them cook slowly. After 15 minutes, the mud crabs were perfectly done inside and out. He cracked open the plump claws and took a bite. A few chews in, and oh my God, what a flavor! The taste was beyond words, simply divine. Lawson devoured the meal with gusto, completely ignoring how hungry his audience must feel, watching him from behind the screen. Once the crabs were gone, his strength surged back instantly. It was time to burn off that extra energy. He wedged a bamboo pole between 2 tree branches and used it for pull-ups as his post-meal workout. When he got tired, he simply perched on it, soaking in the stunning ocean view. With this routine, all those calories burned off quickly, which meant it was time to hunt for food again. This time, Lawson set his sights on the sea. Scattered across the reef were clusters of sea urchins. But he wasn't interested in those little things, because just ahead, he spotted a lobster, a rare and precious delicacy. He surfaced for air, took a deep breath, and dove again. Reaching out for its long whiskers, he snatched the lobster with just a few swift moves. It might not match the giant lobsters of a 5-star restaurant, but it was more than enough for a luxurious feast at sea. Unable to contain his excitement, Lawson held it up proudly for the camera. Finding a sandy spot, he built a campfire. Once the flames burned down, he placed the lobster over the glowing coals to roast. While waiting, he whipped up a dipping sauce, lemon juice in a coconut shell mixed with salt and pepper. Then he quickly plucked another fresh coconut nearby. After quenching his thirst with sweet coconut water, the lobster was perfectly roasted, crispy on the outside, tender inside, filling the air with irresistible aroma. Just look at that gorgeous lobster tail meat. Its protein content rivals beef dozens of times over, enough to make any bystander drool with envy. A life this heavenly truly makes one jealous. Of course, it's absolutely incredible. So delicious, I might just marry this lobster. After savoring the meat, he washed it down with a few sips of coconut water, and just like that, another perfect day came to an end. The next morning, while strolling along the shore, he came across a beautifully shaped dead tree. It looked perfect for building a new shelter. Lawson cleared away the pebbles beneath it, then gathered plenty of wood from nearby. He arranged the logs around the tree to form a circular roof, creating his second hideout on the island. As the saying goes, man is iron, food is steel, skip a meal and the stomach will squeal. So he picked up a wooden stick, sharpened the tip with his knife, and smoothed it on a rock to make a spear, a simple but deadly fishing tool. He wandered along the shore for quite some time until suddenly he spotted a blue-spotted grouper trapped in a tidal pool, a feast delivered right to his doorstep. How could he let it slip away? He drove the fish into a dead corner, thrusting his spear hard into the crevice. After only a few jabs, the spear pierced right through the grouper's gills. What a catch! Amazing! This beauty weighed at least 2.5 kilos, more than enough for a hearty meal. Lawson never imagined he'd catch such a prize in the tidal rocks. In a restaurant, this would easily cost 700 or 800 yuan at least. He could hardly wait to enjoy this delicacy. At the shore, he gutted the fish, cleaned it thoroughly, and rushed back to collect firewood. With a circle of stones, he made a simple fire pit. He piled in twigs and dry leaves, and flames roared up in no time. Lawson sliced up a potato, set it on a stone slab over the fire, then skewered the grouper on a stick and placed it above the flames. 20 minutes later, a perfect 2-dish meal, fish and potato, was ready. The fish cooked beautifully under its own skin's protection. He squeezed fresh lemon juice over it and sprinkled salt and black pepper. The first bite, an absolute masterpiece. Tender with a tangy freshness, delicate yet rich in flavor, he simply couldn't stop eating. But just lying around after a big meal isn't healthy. He needed some entertainment to pass the time, so Lawson dove straight into the sea without looking back. He marveled at the abundance of marine life around him. I can only say, there's too much to eat. Far too much to finish. This place was nothing short of a paradise for fishermen, but surprisingly, Lawson didn't spear a fish to bring back. Instead, he casually grabbed a giant sea conch. Yet fate wasn't on his side. Just as he lit the fire, rain began pouring down. Still, nothing could dampen his adventurous spirit. He placed the conch on the embers to roast, then used the chance to take a refreshing shower in the rain. After roasting the conch halfway, Lawson pulled it out to cool by the sea. Once it cooled, he removed the thick meat, because such a big chunk, if left whole, would take forever to cook through. So he sliced it into pieces and set them back on the coals. A squeeze of lemon juice added just the right touch of flavor. The roasted conch meat turned out chewy, springy, and full of bite. Watching him eat, anyone would want to snatch it for a bite themselves. This guy really struck gold with his luck. The deserted island he bought on a whim turned out to be hiding endless delicacies. Lawson thought, if he brought his wife here, they could easily stay 10 months without leaving. Why 10 months, you ask? Because he doesn't know how to deliver babies. Another morning came, his stomach growled loudly, pushing him to go hunt for food again. This time Lawson decided to bring his gear, his family's old spear gun, passed down 3 generations. He was ready to catch some serious fish to treat himself. But oddly enough, the normally lively seabed was strangely quiet that day. After swimming for a long while, Lawson finally spotted a big-scaled fish. But it was hardly enough to fill him halfway. So, he needed to find something bigger. Not long after, Lawson discovered a grouper, thinking it was well hidden among the rocks. He pulled the trigger and struck it right through on the spot. With such a big catch, he could finally return to shore. On his way back, he stumbled upon a giant clam lying in the sand. Known back home as the prison clam, a single bite could earn you 3 years behind bars. He dug a fire pit in the sand, stacked layers of coconut shells neatly on both sides, then cut several sticks of equal length. He placed them across the shells, making a grill. Once the fire was ready, he laid both fish neatly on top. The grouper, with its fierce glare, still looked unwilling to admit defeat. I must work hard. I must strive forward. One day, I'll be the boss, with a villa by the sea. Future, here I come. Once the fish were cooked, he placed the giant clam inside to see how long it needed. Meanwhile, Lawson cracked open a coconut to quench his thirst. Time flew swiftly. The sun and moon traded places. Soon, the giant clam was fully cooked. When opened, it revealed a feast of color, aroma, and flavor, enough to make anyone's mouth water uncontrollably. Just a few bites of this. Back home, he'd be locked up for years. But here abroad, Lawson could indulge in his cravings without restraint. Tell me, aren't you jealous? Whenever he ate too much, a sip of coconut water eased the heaviness, and another happy day passed. But eating fish and meat every meal, his body lacked essential vitamins. And besides, too much meat gets boring fast. Lawson needed some greens to balance his diet. Somehow, he found an aluminum pot, then picked a bunch of wild vegetables from the forest. He shredded them, added mountain spring water, and set it over a fire to cook. With that, a pot of wild vegetable soup was ready. Lawson eagerly awaited it, hoping the sour greens would cut the grease in his stomach. Even though it was just plain soup, he savored it as if dining at a 5-star restaurant. After finishing the soup, he took a nap, living a life so good, not even gold could buy it. And so, Lawson's survival journey on the island has come to an end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next survival episodes. And what about you? Would you dare to face a survival challenge alone on a deserted island? Goodbye and see you next time!